Hey YouTube, so it is January 1st and I'm revealing my all my holdings throughout 2019. So this is how my uh, portfolio and dividends are starting out the year of 2020. And we'll talk about all these holdings. So nothing's changed in my Chase Roth IRA, but we'll go over it real quick. Um, I have Altria Group here, 56.37 shares. One line item I added was a percentage of portfolio. So right now I'm 16.5% invested, or 16.5% represents, Altria represents, I'll get it out. Trust me. Altria represents 16.5% of my total portfolio. It will give me $189.41 in income a year. And my yield on cost is 7.1% for Altria. I have 102 shares of SKT, which is Tanger Factory Outlets. It is a factory outlet mall REIT. It's 8.8% of the portfolio. Gives me $145.11 in dividend income per year, with a yield on cost of 9.63. I have an ETF, which is SRET, and that's a small mid-cap ETF of REITs. I have 100 shares of that. It's 9% of the portfolio, gives me $118.50 a year. This does not drip. It does not reinvest in itself. It just goes into cash, and that gives me a 7.9% yield on cost. And this pays monthly. Next up is GEO. This is a specialty REIT in private prisons. I have 116.5 shares. 11.6% is representative of the portfolio. It gives me $223.69 of income per year, with a yield on cost of 10.78%. And NOKIA, still holding on to NOKIA, have 152 shares. Gives me no income as they've suspended the dividend. Only makes up 3.2% of the portfolio. Excuse me. But I'm down pretty heavy in this position. I don't know. It's such a small portion. I tend to want to leave it and let it ride. But I'm down 30% on it. I thought about writing covered calls to try to make up that downfall, but if you're only holding, you need 100 shares to write a call or to sell a call, and right now those calls are only worth about $2, and in 30 days, $2 every 30 days, it'd take forever to recover the loss. So I'm either going to sit on it or I'm going to sell it and put it into something else. Ticker symbol VET is up next. That's oil and gas in Canada. I have 50 shares of that. Represents 4.9% of the portfolio. Gives me $104.35 per year in income, and that does not drip either. That goes straight to cash. Yield on cost is 14.1%, and they do pay monthly. So the Chase IRA gives me a yearly income of $781.06. Yield on cost is 8.36%. Next up is the Fidelity account. Done some really big things here in the past few months with this. This is my wife's Roth IRA, and I maxed it out in 2019, at the end of 2019. First ticker I have FTR Ventas, which is a specialty REIT in senior housing and medical facilities. I have 35 shares of that, represents 11.7% of the portfolio. Gives me $110.95 a year in income, with a yield on cost of 5.54%. Next up, one I'm pretty bullish on is BMY. That's Bristol-Myers Squibb. It's a healthcare stock. I own 15 shares of that. It represents 5.6% of the portfolio, gives me $27 a year in income, dividend income, and I have a yield on cost of that of 3.06%. Next up, another tobacco stock, BTI, that's British Tobacco, and I own 10 shares of that. No, I do not. I own 15 shares of that. I didn't update that, but I did update these other numbers. It represents 3.7% of the portfolio, gives me $26.60 a year in dividend income with a yield on cost of 7.09%. Next up is the REIT that I made a video on a couple days ago. And I bought 50 shares of BPR. This is a diversified real estate investment trust. This represents 5.3% of the portfolio, gives me $66 in dividend income with a yield on cost of 7.26%. And lastly, in the Fidelity account is a index fund. That's FNILX. It's a large cap indexed. It's one of Fidelity's no-fee indexes. I have 161 shares of that. It represents 10.6% of the portfolio. I don't know. It's a little different how index funds work, but I did receive $20.82 in dividend income. It's very similar to the S&P 500. So the dividend yield on this is in the ones. It's under 2%. So my M1 Finance. This is the one I'm going to commit to begin funding at least $10 a week in 2020. And right now I am invested. My biggest holding there is SPHD. Everybody knows it. It's a high dividend, low volatility ETF. I have 22.51 shares. It represents 5.7% of the total portfolio. Gives a $40.07 yearly income approximately, because SPHD kind of varies in that. And so far I've received $6.96 for a yield on cost of 4.18%. Next up is QQQ. That's the NASDAQ 100 ETF. Really high growth ETF. It's not a big dividend pair, but represents 2.3% of the portfolio. Gives me $2.88 a year. Dividends, I've received 86 cents, yield on cost of 0.79%. Last but not least in M1 Finance is DGRS. DGRS is a U.S. small cap quality dividend growth ETF. I have 4.04 shares in M1. It represents 0.9%, not even 1% of the total portfolio. Gives approximately $3.76 a year. I've received so far 91 cents. The yield on cost on that is 2.56%. Let me go back over here to Fidelity. Oh, I probably cut off. My head's probably in the way on this one. But that was the M1. So the Fidelity, that one, a yearly income of $251.37 with a yield on cost of 4.18%. And my M1 is yearly income $46.71 with a yield on cost of 3.18%. So all together, I have a yearly income. This was all established in 2019. It was $1,079.14. Have a yield on cost, total yield on cost of 6.41%. So that gives me an average of $89.93 monthly in dividends. Now, this is what I'm allocated. Single stock, my portfolio 71.5% invested in single stock. and 28.5% invested in ETFs and index funds. My largest sector is REITs, and that is at 46.4%. Some will say that is a little high, and I kind of agree. That's why, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for higher yield because I'm going to live on this income eventually, or at least it's going to supplement it. And so I look for higher yield plays. So that's why I also started looking at, I started investing in BPR, which is a diversified REIT. And so I'm trying to find those REITs that'll have some diversification in their portfolio and not just focus on one area. And also why I'm looking at WPC, ticker symbol WPC, which is WP Carry, which is another diversified real estate holding. There are some other areas I want to get into. I want to focus on 2020. The two Roths, I think the most I want to do is maybe 2 stocks each. It's going to have to be opportunistic because I'm not going to just buy a stock because for the sake of diversification. It's got to be a good buy. I'd like to get AT&T in here. If I can get a dip out of them, I'd like to probably get a utility, possibly an energy play, and I would really like a consumer staples. I probably should get a tech, maybe like a Cisco or something like that. But I'll play it by ear. What I'm going to buy is going to be what's on sale and what's the best value at the time. I'm not too concerned about diversification. I'm worried about buying things when they're fairly valued or undervalued. I made that mistake with NOKIA where, I bought into the hype. I bought into the story of 5G, and that kind of, didn't work out too well. It'll probably still work out if you can be patient and hold on. But everything I want to buy, I want to have conviction that it's a good buy. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to buy, a certain sector just because I'm not exposed to that sector. I'm going to buy what's valued at the time or undervalued at the time. So if that means I'm overweight in REITs, that means I'm overweight in REITs. If that means like my second largest sector was tobacco, I'm at like 20%. If that means buying more tobacco, that means buying more tobacco. It's nice to have diversification. That's why I have the 28.5% in the ETF index fund. So there's my diversification. And single stock is what's going to drive the dividend income for years to come. So 2019, this is what it looked like for 2019 for me. I generated $1,079.14 in dividend income. I'm hoping to duplicate that or come close to it. It should duplicate with the drip and reinvestment. So I'm hoping at the end of 2020, I'll be looking at yearly income of $2,000 or so. So if you have any questions for me, leave them down below. I'd love to answer them. I'll make videos of your questions. If you shop with Amazon and you're not using anybody else's link, please consider using the link down below. That would help me out tremendously. It's the only way that I can make a small commission, and it doesn't cost you anything, different than what you were doing previously. I'm not trying to sell you anything. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it. And we'll talk to you later. Thank you. Bye-bye.